And I guess we'll do this again. Welcome into another episode of Betting the Pitch. I don't know why Zoom took so long to start recording, but here we are. I'm the real_G Warner on Twitter. Thank you for listening, whether you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, anywhere you're finding this, Twitter maybe. I appreciate it. Thanks for the support. Leave 5 stars, leave a review, ask some questions in the comments, slide in my DMs, at me on Twitter. Do whatever you want if you got anything to talk about. I'm still very behind catching up on this weekend's soccer, but based on kind of my schedule, we got a lot of matches coming midweek. The best teams in Europe, and they're playing yet again. So figured during the NFL Monday Night Football halftime report, because no one wants to listen to any of that. Maybe you guys want to tune in and talk some Champions League, or I guess listen to me talking some Champions League. It's my first time looking at the lines. I made them this morning while I was at work, but we'll see what happens. And without further ado, we'll get into Tuesday's action. Marseille hosting Sporting Lisboa. Currently Marseille, a quarter goal favorite at home. And that feels a little short to me based on who I thought they were coming into this competition, but they've been awful. They've had terrible results in European competitions going back what feels like a long time. And Sporting Lisbon, Lisboa, they played really well, got a good win at home against Tottenham as an underdog in their last matchup. I think as an underdog player, you're probably not shocked to hear this, but it's Sporting Lisboa or nothing for me. I do think Marseille are talented, but it kind of feels like Marseille have done really well in Liga and have not done well in the Champions League. And I don't think the competition has been that different. Maybe that means Marseille will turn it around, but certainly not interested in backing them. I do feel like this is a pretty short price to fade Marseille at Les Oranges Velodrome because that's a huge crowd. Awesome venue. I wonder if playing at the early time slot, so probably 6:45, I'm guessing, local time in Marseille, if that might maybe limit the crowd a little bit. It's probably a good idea based on crowd behavior in that stadium, but Sporting Lisboa or nothing. I'm also going to give a best bet for each day of the Champions League plus a ultimate best bet at the end of show. So stick around and we'll get to that soon, but we'll go through each match. So that's one down. Next we'll go Bayern München hosting Victoria Plzen. Bayern a 3.25 goal favorite. Over under is 4. And that's saying a lot. Unfortunately, Victoria Plzen, a side from the Czech Republic, I don't really have much belief in them at this point. And Bayern, they've not been playing well in the Bundesliga, but heard about that for an entire international break and came out flying and smoked Bayer Leverkusen. Not that that's a huge accomplishment, really, but still, I guess one step in the right direction. I can't see. I don't even know what number I'm interested in Victoria Plzen. 3.25 is a monster number, but Bayern can win by 7. So touchdowns probably won't be on a scorecard or any sort of handicapping card in Champions League. Next, we'll go Bruges hosting Atletico Madrid. Probably Bruges off to the best start or kind of most surprising start maybe in all of Champions League. They're a 0.5 goal underdog at home to Atletico Madrid. And I don't see any reason to get off the Bruges train. It's been working pretty well for me so far, I got to say. They draw at home and they're taking home a full stake, or I guess getting paid fully. Maybe this one, based on the juice right now, all on the Bruges side, maybe it falls to 1/4. But I'm not saying that's happening. I think Atleti are still pretty popular on the global stage. I mean, if you see a Belgian team against a La Liga Spanish side, I think you're taking the Spanish team every time. Bruges, I'm not sure about the venue and how crazy it is. I feel like Belgian league matches that I've watched have not been as crazy as, for instance, the Dutch matches, especially the Dutch ones that are happening in Europe. They're crazy. I haven't really watched a lot of domestic stuff there, but they definitely show up for the international games. With that said, Atleti, so they're a defensive-minded team that try to add offensive players. They're stuck in transition. They are probably the most risky team or most likely team in all of Europe to get a red card. And that's saying something with places like and teams like Crvena Zvezda, Red Star Belgrade, and other teams like that in there. At least in the Champions League, I think it's by far Atleti leads the way. And I would expect that one of the defenders, Hermoso, I believe, who got sent off not really fairly, but did get sent off, maybe based on reputation this weekend. He's probably starting because he's not going to be available on the weekend, and that probably means that he's might go for 2 for 2. Once a streak starts, sometimes that it's hard to end it. Bruges, you wouldn't think a Belgian team is very good, but they are pretty deep and they've got a lot of players, maybe not has-beens necessarily, but kind of cast-offs from clubs around Europe. Didrik Boyata, a Belgian who came in from Hertha Berlin, is a great defender, for example. I'm not sure that he's playing a ton for Bruges just yet, but it kind of speaks to, I think he's a good example of who Bruges brought in. Mignolet, former Liverpool goalkeeper. I think there's talent in that team. I like the idea of going against Atleti, especially as a road favorite, because I don't really believe in them. So Bruges getting a half a goal is probably my favorite so far that we've covered. FC Porto then hosting Bayer Leverkusen. Currently Porto, a quarter goal favorite with almost all the juice. I don't know if this will climb to a half of a goal, but from where I sit, it's Porto or nothing for me, really. Leverkusen as an underdog is normally where I'd want to go, but I don't really trust them offensively, and they don't play defense at all. And if they can't score a ton of goals, they are at huge risk of giving up a lot of points. Also, Lucas Hradecky, their captain and goalkeeper, has been awful. Like, wouldn't be shocked if they went to a backup, though Leverkusen backup goalies, when Hradecky's been hurt over the last few seasons, have been embarrassments and have really cost them matches, cost them a lot of things, like maybe advancing in Champions League or finishing. I guess they finished in Champions League place in the Bundesliga, so not too bad, but not a great sign if they're with goalkeeper situation being as bad as it is. So I think there's nothing for me to do there on the underdog side. Next, go Inter Milan hosting Barcelona. Massive match for Inter, who need some points, need a result, need all those sort of things in order to kind of find themselves in a good position, because they're in the toughest group of death. Barcelona. I don't know that Barca's been awesome to start this campaign so far. We're only 2 match days in, but Bayern are certainly going to be tough to get in touch with, especially because Bayern won at Inter in the opening match day. Inter are currently a 3/4 goal underdog at home. That's saying something considering Barcelona's troubles. I think we know Barca can score goals, which does matter in this sport, especially as a favorite. But Inter, the results haven't been there in the league, nor have they been there in the Champions League either. So there's big problems there. I'm starting to wonder if Inzaghi is going to be kind of the sneaky first manager fired. I guess there's probably been others in Serie A already, but I don't really like his chances. I feel like following up Conte was tough. They really kind of squandered a Scudetto, a second straight Scudetto at that. And I think the seat's getting hotter. He hasn't done and isn't the same manager as Conte. He's tried to play the same way, which is intelligent, and I credit him for that. But ultimately, they're going to have to play a really good game against Barcelona and try to probably outscore them. Inter coming off a loss to Roma this weekend, pretty gross performance, took a lead, but ultimately gave up a crazy goal by Dybala and then ended up not really doing much. And Roma were kind of in control for a lot of that match. So not a great sign at home. It's nice that they get to stay home for a second straight match, but ultimately, I don't know, at +1. I mean, I doubt we'll ever see that. I can't imagine if it does last, it'll pop for a second, then come back probably. But Barca, they score goals. Their defense is really not great. The problem is, what are you going to do if you're Inter Milan to attack the Barcelona defense? I mean, Edin Dzeko is a great header of the ball, can finish certainly if he gets the ball to his feet in the box, but he's not created much. Lautaro Martinez where has he been? He's really hot or really cold, and we're in a cold stretch right now. So, I mean, Nicola Barella gonna score another free kick from outside the box. Is that the best way Inter going to score? Because I feel like Barcelona, I mean, they're pretty likely to score. They do have to win the match and they have to win by multiple goals to take your full unit. So home dog players, I certainly don't mind the Inter lean or anything like that. I feel like I need that +1, and I don't think I'm going to get it. Next, we'll go Eintracht Frankfurt hosting Tottenham. Currently, Frankfurt, a quarter goal underdog at home, with all the juice on Tottenham on the road, so it might climb to a half. I thought Tottenham were teeter-tottering. They were okay in the North London derby. I really haven't liked how they played a lot of this season. Disappointed I didn't play Sporting Lisboa against them in their last matchup, but easy to say that after Lisboa won. Frankfurt, on the other hand, they start off the year terribly. probably didn't deserve to be in this competition, but did win the Europa League. So I guess they technically did deserve it, won their way in, and I guess credit them for that. But they were so bad in the Bundesliga last year. Having to win games and stack up points just doesn't really seem like something they can do in Europe against good teams. But from where I sit, I'm not really sure what to really even think about with this one, as I think I just saw a walk-off balk in Pittsburgh. Sorry, that threw me off. I don't know what the hell I was watching in the background. But anyway, Tottenham, they want to concede possession, give you the ball. And I don't really like that as a favorite, especially not on the road. We know the Frankfurt crowd travels really well. They should be pretty deep in the arena in Frankfurt. Ultimately, I think that's a good setup for them. I guess the question is, do I want to keep going against Tottenham? And I do, because I feel like I haven't gotten paid what I deserve for how they've played in some of these matches. But Frankfurt, their defense is questionable to me, but I feel like if they have a lot of the ball, that means Tottenham is really pinching, prodding, doing those things less to a Frankfurt defense that can be kind of weak. So it almost kind of covers over some of the issues that Frankfurt have. So I definitely lean Frankfurt at home, currently quarter goal underdog with getting odds. So maybe this closes a half a goal and all you need is a home draw, and then I'll pay a full bet. Next, we'll move Liverpool hosting Rangers. Speaking of another team that I feel like has been struggling based on expectations, that's Liverpool. 2.25 goal favorites to Rangers. I mean, nearly a full goal bigger than they were this weekend against Brighton. And I don't think they were the better team. They did take a 3-2 lead, but ultimately were behind for a lot of the match, 2-0. Firmino got a couple goals, which was important. But from where I sit, I got to say, Liverpool are still a team I want to fade, because they're still getting a ton of respect in the marketplace. And I'm not really sure they deserve it. Now, Rangers, on the other hand, haven't looked great in this competition. Played pretty tight to Napoli in their last match, but ultimately fell apart after a red card, if I remember correctly. It was a long time ago, and I did a lot of traveling through Germany and had a lot of beers. But from what I remember, they were pretty competitive in that one. I liked them a lot in the opener against Iax, but that didn't go well, and they got smashed pretty hard. I feel like Rangers, I don't really know what they're thinking right now in the Champions League, because they're kind of in a very, very tough spot. I might as well pull up Champions League standings just for kicks, because I think that does matter in this one. So Group A, currently Rangers bottom, no goals scored in the competition, 7 goals allowed. I mean, that's not great, to say the least. But from where I kind of sit with them, I thought they were going to be a really good home team entering into this competition. Sorry to kind of ramble a little bit, but I don't know that I feel that they're a road team I want to back, though this number is monstrous for a Liverpool team who honestly have not been good this year. I mean, I think it's as simple as that. The nice part is Liverpool did get a win in their last matchup against Iax. It was close throughout, but I bet Iax plus 1.25, and I was definitely feeling a little nervous as it was going down the stretch, and finally Liverpool took the lead in like the 80th minute, and then I was holding on for dear life. Felt like that backdoor goal was coming, but or front door cover, I guess it would be. But anyway, I think just from when I looking at Rangers, I mean, I like that side. It's too big of a spread, I think, but anything Liverpool's offering to another team is too big at this point. And that's just not sure Rangers are good enough. And with 2 losses and -7, I mean, do they start having to go win matches? Probably not. They probably see a draw here as a great result for them. And that's probably what they'll play for, and try to keep this as low scoring as possible. Maybe under 3.5 looks a little bit more interesting. Last but not least, on Tuesday, we have Iax hosting Napoli, the last matchup in that Group A. Napoli on top right now on 6 points. I did back them to advance because they were getting odds as like the third team in the division, which I didn't agree with. They've been playing great in Serie A. And a really scary team to go against. Now they're going on the road to Iax. This is really probably the big matchup for that second to advance position, unless Liverpool don't wake up, which is certainly possible. They haven't looked like they're exactly firing on any cylinders at this point. But regardless, this was the big matchup for Napoli coming into this group stage. I mean, they play back-to-back because the next round of Champions League is going to be just the reverse fixtures here, which is cool. But I'm not sure that I love that, but it does kind of fit in this situation pretty well. Iax, on 3 points, sitting three behind Napoli. It's a big matchup for them. Currently, Iax a quarter goal favorite. All the juice on Napoli, pretty much, and I like Napoli. I feel like they're as an underdog, they're a team I want to back every time they're playing. To put it that way, I guess. Iax, they were an awesome team in Champions League last year, but part of me wonders. I mean, they flamed out so quickly to Benfica. Got a great draw in the knockout phase of Champions League, and all those teams are good. So I'm not slighting Benfica at all. Don't at me, Lisboa people that are not rooting for Sporting. Sporting people probably love me even saying anything about them. But from where I sit, Iax were dominant and won all their matches, all six group stage matches in the Champions League, but they're in a very wide open group, which also might have been that there weren't really any great teams in there. So then they also lost their manager, sold their entire team essentially to Manchester United, if not just them, a couple other teams. And honestly, from where I sit, I'm very interested in going against Iax. It's going to be a huge crowd. I mentioned the Dutch crowd already in Europe is insane. I do think Napoli, if they go and get a draw at Iax, that puts them, they'll be on 7 points, Iax on only 3, with a home match against Iax to potentially even just silence that challenger. Who knows what Liverpool are going to do? They are a huge favorite, so they should win their match again on a 6 points. But Napoli, I think, I mean, they'd love to win the group. I think advancing is on their mind right now. I don't know that they're a really defensive setup per se, but I don't really see that happening so much from Napoli. But I feel like their offense is good enough. And Iax seemed to be playing the same way Ten Hag was playing, very aggressively trying to score a lot of goals. And I feel like there might be some fireworks in this one. Over under is 3, which is a little bit higher than most, but still not super high. I think I just like Napoli as a better team, and would potentially consider that quarter of a goal if we still have by the time kickoff comes. Moving to Wednesday, we have Red Bull Salzburg hosting Dinamo Zagreb. I'll go through the Tuesday and Wednesday card at the end, give a best bet for each day, an ultimate best bet end of show. Thank you for sticking with me. But Red Bull Salzburg, currently a 3/4 goal favorite, hosting Dinamo Zagreb. This is a position for them to make up some points, make up some ground. They're currently sitting third in the group on 2 points. With Chelsea behind them on 1. So that's certainly a precarious position. I think both these clubs are really fighting to finish third. And if they get second in advance, I mean, dreamland, but ultimately want to make sure that they get into the Europa League because the money matters there. And I think it matters for a lot of these teams. But Salzburg are, I mean, they sell players a ton, but they're still a pretty good, talented group right now. Dinamo Zagreb are one of the longest shots to win Champions League based on futures that were all over the place. So I feel like that's a good sign that Salzburg are a better team here. And giving 3/4 of goal is a pretty sizable number. I don't know that Salzburg are the same because they had some really big pieces move along last year or this summer in the transfer window. So I guess that pushes me to leaning Zagreb, but at 3/4 of a goal, I feel like I need to be a little bit more comfortable with just a goalkeeper that I know and I saw personally in Austria, and then also Orsic, who's like 29, 30 years old. So next we'll move to the other early matchup, RB Leipzig hosting Celtic. Leipzig finally with a bounce back victory, big win against Bochum, but they're bottom of the table. And I think on 1 point this entire Bundesliga season. So not sure that says too much or that much is fixed, I gotta say. But where we're coming from with Celtic, I mean, Celtic, we're getting a lot of respect, I got to say, for odds makers entering into this competition. I think Leipzig are a good home team. Like that's where I don't necessarily know that they are a bad road team. Actually, I kind of feel like I might even say that they've been bad on the road compared to how dominant they are at home. So yes, they might just be a bad road team and a good home team. And that certainly makes a Celtic play a lot more ominous here. Though Celtic getting a full goal of insurance right now does interest me quite a bit. I feel like Leipzig, they're caught in between with managers. I mean, Marco Rose, who's from Leipzig, and Leipzig just got back from there. It's an awesome town, awesome arena. Only 44,000. Crowd was not very loud for the German national team, but it's probably a little bit different for the local club team that you're supporting and all that sort of stuff. But I think from where I sit with Celtic, they've looked like a team that you don't really want to mess with, I gotta say. I mean, they're sitting third in the group on 1 point, so that's not great. But looked like it, and we're ended up closing a favorite at Shakhtar Donetsk. I mean, say what you want with not playing that match in Ukraine right now, but I kind of feel like, I mean, it's literally third versus fourth, 1 point Celtic, 0 for Leipzig after really bad losses to Shakhtar, and a close match that they played against Real Madrid that just didn't get anywhere near enough shots for Leipzig, and then eventually the dam broke and Real Madrid crawled in with 2 goals. But I think this requires Leipzig to win handily, and I do like the idea of Celtic and that full goal of insurance. So I'm interested in that one right there. Moving to the nightcaps, Chelsea hosting AC Milan. Big billing matchup for this one, and huge for that group. Especially after we'll probably know a Zagreb and Salzburg result beforehand. I don't know how much that really impacts anything though. But Chelsea a 3/4 goal favorite at home, which is important, where they play a lot better. But do I necessarily believe in them? No, I do not. I still think they have huge offensive problems. I don't know that Graham Potter can fix that. I don't know that he has the players for that. I feel like that's something we need to watch and really kind of understand who Graham Potter is going to be at Chelsea, because it's a different job than at Brighton when you're selling players off and just trying to stay in the league. AC Milan have been, I got to say, pretty impressive. No one really believed in them to win the Scudetto, even with like a nice run in at the end of the year and the lead. People were still picking Inter. Didn't work out for those. Pioli, I mean, you can question him, certainly. They had a huge emotional win this weekend as well. Ridiculous cover. Apologies, thoughts and prayers if you had Empoli on Saturday night. Oh my goodness. But Chelsea, based on this number right now, they have to win by a goal to take half my stake. So I definitely lean to Milan, especially seeing Chelsea. They closed, I think, a 3/4 goal favorite on the road at Crystal Palace on the weekend. I don't think they're that much better than Crystal Palace. I don't think they're this much better than Milan, though playing at home certainly helps. They've definitely beaten teams up at home before in the Champions League, where they'll have a huge crowd behind them, and AC Milan will be a big test to see if they can hang with an English club. But with that said, I like Milan, and there's a lot of juice on the Chelsea side right now. If this hits one, I don't think there's any way I avoid it. Next, we'll go Real Madrid hosting Shakhtar Donetsk. I mean, Shakhtar, I loved them in the matchup before I went to Germany. They kind of hung on for dear life and got a draw in there. Not their home away from home, I guess is the best way to put it. Real Madrid are just so scared to fade, though, unfortunately. Real Madrid is a 2.25 goal favorite, way too big based on any evidence of how they play. I mean, they don't beat teams handily. It's like they outlast teams. They maybe I should credit them more for tiring out their opponents, but I swear to God, it doesn't really seem that impressive to me. A lot of times it's really Real Madrid, just kind of putzing around, picking daisies in the outfield, baseball reference, I guess. And then eventually they score a goal late, and then sometimes get an add-on to really kill and bust anyone that played an underdog against them. I'm not sure Benzema's status here, but if he's not in, that's a major step I would like to go against, because Real Madrid's offense without Karim Benzema has been stagnant, is a polite way to put it. And I think that they're kind of stagnant even with him. This number, they currently need to win by more than 2 goals to take my full stake. Shakhtar, I mean, it's going to be a tough position. They're going to go into a really tough place to play. I don't know that the Bernabeu is that intimidating, but it does certainly when they get rolling. It can get ugly really fast. I don't think it's because of loud fans or anything necessarily, but lean to Shakhtar getting 2 2/4, or 2 1/4 goals, excuse me. But might be one of those that I probably should stick away from or something like that. Next we'll go Manchester City. I guess we're getting to the big spreads portion of this program. Man City, a 3-goal favorite to FC Copenhagen. All the juice on City as well, so might climb to 3 1/4. I mean, I guess I sort of backed Copenhagen in their last matchup, hosting Sevilla at home. I almost took them as a 1/4 goal underdog, ended up taking the under, which was a no sweat nil goalless draw, which is about all you could ask for an underplay. But I think where I sit right now, Man City look like a really scary team to go against. And I feel like if you're going to fade Man City, and I've had fairly good success fading Man City over the years, But if you're going to do it, you need to be facing, or you need to be backing a team that's of a similar quality. Those are the ones that Man City struggle with. And I feel like when you're thinking about teams in the world that are like that now, it's like PSG, who might be the best team in the world at this point, and we haven't got to them yet, so they'll come up soon. But um, and Liverpool doesn't seem that close, though. Did win the Community Shield bet because they were, I think, better that day. But ultimately, that's still a little bit of a jump. The problem is Man City can name their scores, and FC Copenhagen, they're going to go to Man City. It's going to be a tough situation for them going to England. I feel like dealing with English fans is a tough thing for a lot of these teams that haven't done it before. And I think ultimately, sorry, I feel like my charger's dying, so I feel, or my phone or whatever, my computer's dying, so I might have to grab this charger soon. Anyway, over under is 4. It makes me want to go under because I think if Copenhagen are going to cover, it's certainly not from scoring. But Man City, they can name their price, as I said earlier. So it's probably one I should look away from. Though getting, a 3-0 loss being a push is a really nice situation to have an underdog. But I think that one could get really ugly. Next, we go Sevilla hosting Borussia Dortmund. The other big one, big matchup in this division and this group, and it's going to be very important. Sevilla currently on 1 point in last, Dortmund on 3. From their victory against Copenhagen. I thought Dortmund played really well against Man City, deserved better than they got. Pretty disappointing for them, but I think they covered the spread, so that was good, at least for those who backed them. Sevilla currently a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice. Dortmund with a pretty poor performance this weekend. I went to their match against Schalke, and they didn't create hardly anything at home. Tough position coming up straight off that Man City loss. That was really disappointing and probably very emotional, playing against Erling Haaland and also Akanji as well. Sevilla just aren't the same team. They aren't a team that I trust to score goals. Their defense, they sold off their entire center back partnership. Their fullbacks are pretty old. So it's tough to say what's really happening, but it's not going well for Sevilla. I don't even know if Julian Lopetegui is still there, but his days are numbered, I think. Dortmund, they're hard to trust, though, and on the road as a favorite. I just don't like that defense still. Nico Schlotterbeck, who's so good for Freiburg, it kind of showed to me, at least so far this season, that it's not just about the Joes. It's also about the X's and the O's, and I feel like Dortmund just have been trying to be this feeder club for all these talented offensive players, and it's worked. But has it worked? They haven't challenged in the Champions League. They haven't challenged in the Bundesliga. They haven't hardly done anything really. So I'm just not really a huge fan ultimately. And I feel like from where I sit, I guess that pushes me towards back in Sevilla. That's a sharp play for sure, and I like that side a lot. I just don't know if it's one that I really want to do necessarily on this one, because Dortmund can score. We do know that, whether it's somehow Julian Brandt is leading their goal scoring things, especially with Marco Reus out. But next one we'll move on to, thankfully, went on that one probably way too long. It's Benfica hosting PSG. Currently Benfica 3/4 goal underdog. Juice is pretty much even. I would imagine PSG money will come in and will probably never stop coming in. But from where I sit right now, PSG are, to me, look like the best team in the world. They're so deep. They've only adding Carlos Soler, the captain of Valencia. His contract was coming up, and they're kind of poor. But ultimately, adding him to basically be a backup reserve central defensive midfielder or central attacking midfielder, maybe. That's just shows what it's like to have oil money in this game, and that matters. It means something. I gotta plug this thing in, but just to finish that thought, I do like Benfica quite a bit. I feel like, and I didn't mean to slight them earlier when saying that they knocked out Iax, and that was a thought that maybe Iax weren't as strong last year. I really like the Portuguese league, and I feel like they're a group that I want to back in this competition. I think they're talented and can beat people up. But from where I sit right now, I gotta say, I just feel like if I'm going to play Benfica, I think I need that +1. This is a pretty respectful line. PSG, I think we're a goal favorite at Lyon, which is saying something in a big time rivalry in Liga. I don't know if Benfica technically, I would imagine that they have a lower squad value on transfer market than Lyon do. But It's saying something. I think it does give Benfica some respect in terms of the standings in this one. I mean, PSG are on top with 6, Benfica also at 6, Juve and Maccabi Haifa both on 0. I mean, a draw here is a huge point for Benfica. I think that was obvious in when the draw came out. But any points that they can add, I think they're going to play a defensive brand of soccer football. That's like what they always do anyway. Doesn't really matter who's managing or whether they have Darwin Nunez or not. Certainly without him, that does remove an important goal threat. But from where I sit, I like Benfica. I just don't know. I think I need a +1 and might even be a little bit easier to back the under 3.25 and hope that Benfica can hold on for dear life, because a 2-0 loss for Benfica covers that under, does not cover them as an underdog at home. And they could score a goal, lose 2-1, and cover that when you half of a bet anyway. So, and last but not least, other matchup in this group is Juventus hosting Maccabi Haifa. This is a match they have to win. They are getting healthier. I mean, there's rumors that Federico Chiesa might be available, and Freddie Churches is really important to that team. They have been a shell without him offensively. I don't know that I necessarily believe that they. I mean, they should. Maccabi Haifa, it's hard to say. I mean, so they've scored 1 goal. They're -4 goal differential. So they've allowed 5 in the 2 matches. They're only a 1.5 goal underdog, an Israeli team heading to Juventus in Torino. I mean, that's like a number that Bologna. I mean, Bologna were a 1 goal underdog, I think, this past weekend. I mean, it's a pretty low number. I think that speaks to the opinions on Juventus right now. It's certainly not good. Bologna went there; they're a 1 goal underdog. So I guess it's a little bit worse than that than Bologna. But I feel like this number before Juve were struggling so much, it probably was like a significantly higher number. 1.5 feels like a really cheap price to back Haifa, and ultimately Maccabi Haifa, I think, are not a good value in this one. Though fading Juve is certainly made a lot of people money so far this season. I can't really hate on anybody continuing that streak if you've been riding the bandwagon. So now we've made it to the end of the show. I'm going to go through best bets for each Tuesday and Wednesday, and ultimate best bet as well. I know it's what everyone hung out for, and thanks for doing this and being there with me on a Monday night. Maybe a little late for you if you're watching this in Europe or on a rewatch or something like that. Anyway, like Sporting Lisboa getting a quarter, but I feel like that's a pretty low price to buy in to fade Marseille, and a desperate Marseille team at that. Next we'll go no interest in Victoria Plzen. I do like Bruges at home getting a half of a goal from Atleti. Leverkusen, a quarter goal underdog on the road at Porto doesn't really fit. Need a lot more than that. I think maybe it trends up there. Inter Milan, I think I need a full goal at home against Barcelona. I do like Eintracht Frankfurt getting a quarter at home from Tottenham, but I would like a half. I think that's an important distinction. Rangers getting 2.25. Don't blame anyone just fading Liverpool blindly, but I feel like that's what it is at this point. Just a blind fade of Liverpool rather than a play on Rangers, because they have not looked very good in this competition. And last but not least, Napoli going on the road to Iax getting a quarter of a goal. I think Napoli, as I've already said, I mean, I backed them to advance in this group. I think they're better than Iax. This is not, unfortunately, going on the road to Iax. It doesn't, even if they are better, they still can lose this match. So that's a little bit scary. Only getting a quarter is not a huge number, but they've been playing so well, really regardless of venue. And I really like Napoli this year. So Napoli getting a quarter is up there on my list for best bets for Tuesday. But I think I'm going to stay with Bruges. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Half a goal underdog at home. I think they've been really good so far this competition, and I feel like betting against Atletico Madrid when they don't have La Liga refs to bail out the biggest clubs there is a big deal. So I'll take Bruges getting a half of a goal as my best bet for Tuesday. For Wednesday, I've got some interest in Zagreb, but I'd like that full 1 goal of insurance from Salzburg, but likely probably stay away from that one. Celtic are +1, and I do like that full 1 at Leipzig, who I think are far from out of the woods so far. Milan, I like getting 3/4 of a goal at Chelsea. Would love to get 1 there as well. Shakhtar Donetsk, I'm going to try to stay away from, but I do like the 2.25, especially if Benzema doesn't play for Real Madrid. Copenhagen, I'm going to skip. Sevilla, I like as a sharp play, and I feel like that's like plenty of people on gambling Twitter. Like, if a line stinks, that's what you're playing. I don't think this one stinks. I think it makes sense, but ultimately you're backing a team no one wants to back in Sevilla, but Dortmund are pretty vulnerable road favorite. I'll put it that way. Benfica, I'd like them getting a full goal from PSG, say the least. I do like under 3.25 there. And not much interest in Maccabi Haifa, unless you're just playing a blind Juve fade, which, I mean, certainly stupider things have won before, to say the least. I'm not saying that's stupid. That's a reasonable idea. So Celtic +1 as a possibility on Wednesday. Milan's just really not there just yet for me. Sevilla, I mean, I keep coming back to the one that one I feel like is frisky, and I like that, but you got to really understand what's going on with that team, and I'm not sure that I do at this moment. On the other side of the world. And Benfica, PSG can score so many goals. I feel like they're going to struggle too. So I like that under 3.25 for Benfica as well. But I think I'm going to go. I mean, it feels a little weird, but my best bet for Wednesday, I'm going to go Celtic +1 at Leipzig. I think Leipzig have shown that they're vulnerable. I'm not buying a big victory over the worst team in the Bundesliga that are worth like half of what the rest of the teams in the league are. So I'm going to skip that one. And I'm going to wrap up this podcast with, I guess, an ultimate best bet. And I'm going to stick with Bruges +1/2. It's a Tuesday game. I would be a little bit more careful to make sure I don't lose that half, because I do think that's an important distinction there. And I like it because I don't think Atletico Madrid are very good. So I'll take Bruges +1/2, ultimate best bet. Thanks for tuning in. I'm the real_G Warner on Twitter. You can follow me on Griffin Warner on YouTube, or where you can find the links. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, would love it for some follows, some likes, some subscribes, anything like that. So you know that as soon as I put one of these out, you guys get a notification, and you can ride with me and watch how these lines move. Thanks again, and we'll see you for a Europa League podcast on Wednesday night. Shooting for that.